All right. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday night. I'm Jason from 161 River Ave. I'm very excited to be here with Jim Riley from BALLCAP Sports, man. Thanks so much for coming on. We're going to talk about the state of our franchise, right? The Blue Jays, Yankees, maybe go a little bit AL East. And if you folks have any questions for us, drop them out and we'll see what we can get to. But thanks so much for coming on, Jim. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. This may be the last of my season preview content between now and who knows when. We'll see. We were just talking off space. There's going through some technology issues over here, but other than that, I'm looking forward to the season starting and getting this thing rocking and rolling.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I'll get you going. How do you feel about where your Blue Jays stand right now? I mean, is their bullpen where you want it to be? Is the roster where you want it to be? I know they haven't made the final calls yet, but like, is it shaping up the way you want it to shape up?
Yeah, this. I think last year's team sort of there were there. Last year's team, I think, under delivered in a few areas, and I think that they tried to address those. They got better defensively, which is something they needed to do. They brought in another, though the price was high, with Swanson. They brought in another swing and miss reliever. So you've got a upgraded bullpen, a upgraded defense. I would argue an upgraded rotation, bringing in Bassett, and the lineup with Gurriel and Hernandez gone is tough. But they brought in Varsho, they brought in Belt, two lefty bats that can really change the dynamic, change the structure, so that when you're going against the Toronto Blue Jays, it's not just fastballs and sliders low and away to 8 of the 9 hitters. So I like everything. At the end of the day, I like everything they did, and they set themselves up where if we get to the trade deadline and let's say there's something short, that something should only be like 1 or 2 things, and maybe they're small things, and they can be addressed at that time. This team this team can make a run.
I'll tell you this, man. They're 1 through 5. They're 1 through 6 scares the crap out of me. In that lineup. I mean, I don't know where Kiermaier's going to stand, but like, and I don't even know. But I'm looking at it. You know, if I'm doing Witt, and let's just say Bo, let's say Springer, Vlad, Varsho. That 1 through 5 scares the hell out of me. Just that 1 through 5. Forget 6 through 9. So that's a walking nightmare for starting pitchers. So
that's the point, right? Be strong and be long, and that's what they have built. You really don't get a break until Kevin Kiermaier comes around, and even he can sort of be a pain in the ass at bat. So that's what they're counting on, is that you'll get another year of advancement from Bo and Vladdy. You'll get the veteran leadership from Belt and Kiermaier. Varsho will continue to improve. Maybe get a little bit of a boost with the shift going away for Varsho. We'll see. I'm not 100% sold on that, but we'll see. So the team is in about as good of a spot as I think Blue Jay fans could hope. I know there were Blue Jay fans that this offseason were clamoring for another righty bat. There were Blue Jay fans clamoring for another outfielder. I didn't understand that. There were Jays fans that wanted another starting pitcher, and those things just weren't going to happen. Maybe they'll need that need will pop up as the season goes on. But heading into the season, I think this team is about as good as a Jays fan could hope for.
Yeah, I think the balance is better. You've upgraded defensively, I think, in the outfield too. And you've added some diversity to a lineup that might not have had as much of it before. So it's to me the most frightening lineup in the American League East when the Yankees would face. So we can get to other teams as well, but like, my God, I mean, even going to pitching, like you have Manoah. I mean, who else you have? Kikuchi. You have who do they have now? Who's the guy they just signed?
Well, you've got Bassett in there.
That's
No, 1 through 4, it's tough, and then the 5 spot, we'll see what you think Kikuchi can do. But I mean, if you're tough 1 through 4, you're doing a good job, right? If your season is not gonna your season's not gonna fall apart based on what your number 5 starter does. If that's what does it in, something else is wrong.
true. Very, very true. And again, they're right now they're 17 and 13. So they, kind of adjusting nicely. I mean, the AL East standings right now, 17 and 13. Toronto 14 and 12, Boston 16 and 12, Baltimore 15 and 13, Tampa Bay, and in the gutter, the Yankees 12 and 17. So, but I don't know. Have any of your top prospects I was very excited because Anthony Volpe got the spot today.
Yeah, he did.
So has any of the top prospects in Toronto that you wanted to get the call up? Because
Yeah,
I remember last year and seeing that Rushman getting it. It's like there's no better feeling than watching that video.
Yeah, no, the Blue Jays are going to at some point bring Ricky Tiedemann up. I think that the prospects that could impact Toronto this year is Ricky Tiedemann, it's Addison Barger, it's Aurelvis Martinez. Those are the 3 that I think could have the big impact. Now, when they come up is going to be based on need, because right now the Blue Jays on the left side of the infield are good. And that's where Aurelvis Martinez and Addison Barger fit in. With Ricky Tiedemann, he's going to come up, he's a starter, but maybe depending on how this bullpen, I mean, the bullpen is an area of depth too for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think there's some Blue Jays fans that don't want to say that, but I'll say it. I think there's about 5 or 6 guys that I trust out of that bullpen. And I think that's a solid number. If you can trust 5 or 6 guys coming out of that pen, I think you're in a good spot. So Ricky Tiedemann, if he doesn't come up as a starter, he'll come up as a bullpen. So really a matter of when they need him, either for that rotation spot or that bullpen. But he's probably the first guy. I would bet he has the biggest impact.
Yeah.
But you guys, so you got Volpe up, but it kind of cost you Peraza, right? Because he's going to start in the minors. You feeling all right about that? I know Volpe killed it this spring.
He did. I mean, I personally think Volpe's going to be a better fit at second base. Like, I don't want one or the other. I want Volpe and Peraza because it's the best, I think, fit. I mean, it reminds me of like a Trammell and Whitaker pair from Detroit, right? And early on, obviously, but Volpe's special. He had to get up here, and I was actually worried. I thought Peraza was going to make it, and I wasn't sure about Volpe. So I'm like, okay, Volpe's going to get up here. They have to make a couple. They have to trade. I think IKF and Gleyber Torres because Volpe was blocked at second base. So, in my opinion, more by Torres than anybody else. And Torres has the most trade value on this team right now, and the Yankees have to have a need right now. They have 3 starters that are going to be starting the season on the IL. So they happen to have a need for another starting pitcher, right? Somebody that can credibly, not necessarily have to be an ace, but somebody who can come in and throw every 5 days and keep them in the game. So
and that's the problem. There's no trade match for that right now, right? There's no starter quality that's going to help you right now that you would give up for Gleyber Torres, and also it's too early. You could get Rodon back. You could get Severino back and be fine if you can weather the storm with the guys you got. It's I mean, I can't even think of anybody that would be available to trade for right now. There isn't anybody. So there's really no trade anyway. So you just kind of roll with it. But Gleyber's your trade piece later in the year when the need comes up.
I think he comes up. And I know that Chris Flexen's being thrown around from Seattle, but he's not even in their rotation.
Oh my God. No, you wouldn't give up Gleyber Torres for that.
No, maybe you give up IKF for that, but not Gleyber Torres.
Right.
So, and I know Corbin Burns' name is, but you're going to have to add Peraza. You got that Dominguez. I mean, Corbin Burns is going to cost more than Luis Castillo, in my opinion, is going to cost.
I agree with you. And Corbin Burns won't be traded at earliest until next offseason because Milwaukee's going to be in it. They always are. They will be again. And so they can't trade. They can't justify trading him during the season, especially when they have him under control for next season. So earliest Burns is going to get traded anyway will be next offseason.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk on, especially he just signed with Scott Boras a couple of days ago. So.
Oh yeah, he did. He's gonna F the Brewers over if
Yeah,
he can, because they gave him one. They gave him a tough pill to swallow with that arbitration thing.
yes,
He's
they
not
did.
messing around.
And again, even if he joins the free agent class next offseason, which is going to be the deepest in a while, he's going to be at the top of that list. It's going to be him and maybe Julio Urias and the Dodgers, who apparently him and the Dodgers are not seeing eye to eye contract wise. So
Right.
there'll be a couple guys up the top that are going to be, I think, separate from the guys that are below him. You got Blake Snell, Luis Severino, a couple other guys, but like those are going to be, I think, two big guys. But they're both going to cost a boatload of money.
Yeah.
Boatload of money. They
Yeah.
pitch well. So, but Burns to me is a little far fetched trading for him right now because you're going to have to give up a lot of guys who you just wanted to make the team. So I don't know. I don't really know, and I agree with you. We're weathering the storm. If you get a depth piece at a not a high cost, then okay, fine. But I'm really hoping that guy, Cole's surrounded by a healthy Rodon, and then Nestor Cortez is back healthy, and Severino's back healthy. Like whatever we get from 5 right now, I was a little disappointed because not only was Peraza sent down today, but so was Matt Crook, who was a lefty pitcher who I thought would beat out Schmidt and Herman. But a 5 spot, they optioned him out today too, this evening actually with Peraza. So I know Peraza he was diagnosed a couple days ago with nearsightedness, so they gave him corrective lenses, which fixed his eye problems or was having trouble identifying pitches and all that stuff. So I think he's going to get a couple weeks of seasoning, probably in the minors, and then they'll probably bring him up. I think he's too good to keep down there, honestly.
Yeah, that's the tough part. I mean, where's he going to play? Like who slides to left and puts Hicks on the bench?
You know what? I think Willie Calhoun right now is the front runner. And again, it's not a sexy name, but like him and Rafael Ortega were the front guys, right?
Well, but I'm not even saying that. I'm saying to make room for Peraza.
Oh yeah.
Right, because if you've got, I guess maybe Donaldson gets benched or Donaldson just gets cut. I think the Yankees, ideally, we're gonna start the year. You're gonna try to make it work. But if you're a month in and he sucks, don't ruin the season over. Listen, it's not my money, but don't ruin the season over Donaldson's salary. That would hurt more if you did that. So like, I guess maybe it's Donaldson too could be the guy that if you're a month in, gets the boot.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, too, one way or another, they're paying Donaldson's salary. So
Right.
It sucks. Bring up Andre Chapar, somebody else that will give better output because I'd rather get a net gain of better production out of the same salary. So just put somebody in there who's not going to stink the place up. You're paying it anyway for the year, so what the hell's the difference unless they trade him? So I'd rather get better production from wherever I possibly can.
Yeah.
So if he does, I got to put him on a short leash. And if he stinks up the place, you move on from him, and then you get Chaparro.
Yeah, it's what you got to do. And anybody that wants to push back and say they're not going to cut him because that they got too much money, Robinson Cano. There are certain teams that will just, again, you can't lose the season. You can't miss out on the number one spot. You can't miss out on a World Series because of Josh Donaldson's remaining $18 million. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But if it costs you the season, that is well past worse than that money.
Yeah, and I do think they'll try to trade him before anything. But if he's stinking up the joint, he doesn't have any trade value.
No, he doesn't.
So you're not going to be able to.
No.
At that point, you got to make a decision, right? Move on, get a better bat in there, do something, improve the position. Again, try to get a net gain out of the money you're already paying. Right. So
yeah.
To me, so there's a couple of decisions that the Yankees need to make over the next couple of weeks. I mean, I thought, like I said, Peraza was going to be up and they were going to make a decision because there was talk about keeping Volpe down until April 17th to get the extra year service time and all this stuff. But Volpe kind of forced his way on the roster. Like, how could you can't keep him down there? Basically, he was tearing the cover off the ball. So people would have been rioting in the streets. So I understand the logic behind Peraza. You might keep him a couple of weeks to let him get better and get a little bit more productive at bats, and you can call him up. But again, I think IKF's not going to block him. I think he's going to get moved the next couple of days. IKF. Torres, I'm not sure. So they might play Torres at second and Volpe at short. But at the end of the day, I think Peraza and Volpe are the two ideal guys, and you got to do what you have to do to make room for these guys.
Right.
So,
there's some. interesting. There's you're dealing with that. The Mets are dealing with that. There's a few teams, and the Cardinals are dealing with that. And the Cardinals are just plowing through with George Walker. They're like, you know what?
Yeah,
We're doing it. Juan Yepes, it was a nice rookie season, but we might have something better.
exactly. And again, like at some point, if you have a surplus at a certain position, what the Yankees do, but you still have prospects at that same position knocking at the door,
Mm-hmm.
at some point you have to make a decision. Like, I like Torres. I love Volpe. There's a difference, right? And
Yeah,
Torres is the only guy on the team that can net them the ability to improve in another position right now. So it's a
yeah.
decision they have to make if you want Volpe to be up here without any interruption, without any
You got
problem.
to see. Yeah, but I think the trade rumors are going to be wild for Gleyber Torres this season.
It's nuts.
Right. When you get to when we know what pitchers are available in the trade market, it's going to be crazy. The Gleyber Torres trade rumors.
Yeah, and I remember, was it you that brought up potential for? Because who's going to play first base for the Blue Jays?
Vladdy,
Vladdy, right? Okay. Who's DHing?
Brandon Belt.
Okay. Was there thought about Joey Votto coming to the Jays for a bit to fill some kind of spot, or
There was a story from the Reds general manager was talking to reporters the other day, and he said that if Joey Votto came to him and requested a trade to Toronto later in the season, if the Reds are out of it, which the
yeah,
Reds are, I'm sorry, Reds fans, any Reds fans, the Reds are going to be out of it after a month. So you've got him, Joey, the GM from the Reds, saying that if Votto requested it, that he would entertain it, trading Joey Votto to Toronto. But the Blue Jays are going to have to fall into some kind of a need because at least starting the season, they don't have a need for Joey Votto. They've got enough lefty bats. They've got Brandon Belt and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Joey Votto. You wouldn't want to bring Joey Votto over anyway if his skills are continuing to regress.
yeah,
Wouldn't help the team. So there's going to have to be almost the perfect scenario is going to have to play out for that to make sense. Because then you even have to look at the trade itself, where what would the trade be? It's a player to be named later. Even, no matter what Joey Votto's doing this year, it's a player to be named later and some cash because Toronto, even if you trade, it's 20, I believe it's 25 million bucks this year for Joey Votto.
yeah,
So if you're trading for him for the last 7-8 weeks of the season, that's still a lot of money that nobody might want to take on. The Blue Jays might not want to take on. So the Reds are going to have to take some money on that too. So that whole scenario is just a difficult puzzle piece to match.
yeah. The same thing applies here too with the Yankees. Again, with Hicks,
Mm-hmm.
right? KF, but Hicks and Donaldson can be the most unmovable contracts right now.
Yeah.
Donaldson, what are you going to do? But at some point, some kind of decision has to be because you don't want to block Jason Dominguez,
No.
or you don't want to block Everson Pereira, something like that. I mean, and I've talked about this for a while. You even put a video recently about the Yankees being one of the candidates potentially bringing somebody like a Brian Reynolds, who to
Sure.
me, I think would be the perfect fit to address needs that the Yankees specifically have. Right,
Right.
that left fielder who could also be their leadoff hitter, who can also it profiles perfectly as a fit for
Yeah.
the Yankees, but will it cost? And I actually like your trade better because I always had Dominguez as a trade, but you actually had Everson Pereira and a couple other guys, which I kind of like that trade package better than one that I put up with.
Yeah. Yeah. I had Pereira in 3 pitchers. One of the pitchers you're using now in the rotation was Clark Schmidt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of if Brian Reynolds gets moved, which I think the Pirates have a real the Pirates are very tapped into or tuned into what the reaction would be to a trade. And part of that video that I put together, you notice, based on baseball trade values, nobody can really honestly put together a trade that matches up with Brian Reynolds' value. Nobody's going to do it because I think we'll kind of throw the numbers back out there. Brian Reynolds was at we'll just call it $60 million value in the trade.
Yeah.
And I think the Yankees trade I put together came right around 35. I had a Dodgers trade that put them at about 45.
Yeah.
and I had a Braves trade that had them in the same area as the Yankees, and that was 4 players. That was a position player to replace Reynolds and 3 pitching prospects, and it still did get there. But there's no way the Pirates would get more than that. So you would say, well, then take out one of the lower level prospects and increase somebody with higher value. Well, the problem then, Yankees are including Oswald Peraza, and that's not happening. The Braves are including Kyle Wright. That's not happening. The Dodgers would be including another blue chip prospect. That's not going to happen. So the teams that make sense, the trades don't make sense. So I think Pittsburgh is probably getting, if they're still having conversations, they're getting those kind of offers, and they would be probably viewed at as taking a hard loss on that trade, and I don't think they want to be in that position.
Yeah, it's true. It does make sense. But again, like you said too, and I agree, the longer they hold on to him, the less value he's going to have in a trade. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of applies to a lot of star players. So again, at some
Yeah.
point, they've got to realize, okay, this is the best we can do. Now, is it better than Brian Reynolds by himself? Well, we haven't extended the guy yet. We haven't given him. We're not even anywhere near close what he wants. So
Well, what's happening now is exactly maybe a couple months ago when I was talking about this. What needs to happen to get closer to the Brian Reynolds trade is another round of negotiation. And John Heyman tweeted out, I think a day or two ago, that the Pirates were still trying to negotiate an extension with Reynolds. So if you're looking to check off the boxes, the items that need to happen for Brian Reynolds to be traded, this is one of those things. They need to go back into the negotiation room to try to hammer out a deal. Pittsburgh to come up short again, and then just make Brian Reynolds even more unhappy. That is one of the things that happens to get one step closer to a trade. Whether that trade is at the trade deadline, whether the trade's at next off season, whether the trade's tomorrow, that is another hurdle that needs to be cleared to get to a Brian Reynolds trade. And maybe Pittsburgh comes to their senses and they give him what he's worth, but maybe they don't.
yeah, and then maybe an acquiring team is in a little bit more of a favorable position to make a trade that they find more reasonable for them, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, both sides. I mean, it's going to hurt both sides, right? One way to get a good trade, Pittsburgh's going to get a painful package, but again, the Yankees are going to get the key player, or whatever team it might be,
Mm-hmm.
Braves, Dodgers, Mariners, whatever, going to get the key player, and it's got to hurt. Like it hurt Seattle to get Castillo, the package they gave up, but
Yeah, they gave up a ton.
yeah, but I mean that's what it takes. I mean Soto with the Padres, it's just what it takes. So to get these guys, and they
Right.
extended Soto. I mean they extended Castillo, so they're in a good spot, right? So and it's just it is what it is for these types of trades. So, and I think Reynolds is going to be in a similar boat one way or the other.
Yeah.
So, and I think moving off to other teams in the American League, I think I don't know if you agree with me, but I think the Yankees and the Blue Jays are at a little bit of a higher tier than the other 3 teams.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
right? I think it's going to be them two and then a gap, but I could still see even the Orioles winning more games, maybe even being a 500 team and being in last place. So I could
Right.
see. So, and I think I mentioned to you, I think the AL East reminds me of the SEC football conference. Every
Yes.
game is like a playoff environment. It's quality games, and they're beating each other up.
Yeah.
So it just reminds me of Alabama versus Georgia, stuff like that, Tennessee versus Florida. It's
Mm-hmm.
similar to me. So it's exciting baseball. And, teams like the Orioles, and again, they are, 16-12, but like, what are they going to do with Grayson Rodriguez? They're loaded with prospects too. Adley Rushman, you got all these young players, and they have a good pipeline. I think they're a couple years after or behind where the Blue Jays were a couple years ago. This
Yeah.
young pipeline of players, and they're going to be good for the next several years, the Orioles. So, again, Vincent Velasquez is kind of showing a resurgence there. So, what's your take on the Orioles? I mean, what do you think about the other teams?
I think the Orioles are going to be good. I think they'll have some streaks where they'll look like the team that I think a lot of people want to hype them up to be this year. But in the end, I think that the Baltimore Orioles are going to finish right around 500. I think they will finish right around 500. And then next season, 2024, they'll win 90 games. But this season, I think last year might have set an unrealistic bar for them. I think they're going to be good. And again, I think they'll have some streaks in them where they look like that team that, oh, here come the Orioles. They're going to win that 90. They're going to do that 90-game thing. But I also think they're going to go through some growing pains because you're going to have some rookies coming up with Grayson Rodriguez and some other ones. You're going to have, you might have, I mean, the Rutschman thing last year was kind of incredible. Like, he really didn't struggle. And that's coming eventually. So you're going to have to deal with probably an Adley Rutschman, slump. And it just happens. It happens to all players.
Yeah.
Vladdy dealt with it. Vladdy dealt with it for what seemed like what felt like an entire season. So it happens to the best players. So I think the Orioles have a little bit of a setback. But listen, if you have a setback season and you go 81 wins, that's a good sign for next season. Like I said, 2024, put me down for 90 plus for the Orioles at that point. I want to see Grayson Rodriguez develop. I want to see the front office actually do something in the offseason. I want to see the ownership and front office be on the same damn page, something they were not this past offseason. So the Orioles have to show me something before I change that 81 win prediction. I'm worried about I'm actually kind of worried about the Red Sox now.
Why? You know what's funny? Like, their rotation is nothing to to be excited about. At least if you have a healthy Sale, okay.
I mean, look, if you have a healthy Sale, Brian Bayo might be really good, and Brian Bayo had his. See, I also look at rookies that, and I don't think Bayo. Yes, I don't know if Bayo's still considered a rookie, but I look at guys that are in their second season, whether they're still considered a rookie or not. Right? They had a considerable amount of time last year. They had enough time last year to kind of figure it out, right? And Bayo feels like he had enough time last year to figure it out. So you won't have a learning curve. You may still you'll get more tape and hitters will learn more of your tendencies, but there's a few steps on that learning curve that he checked off. So I think Bayo is in maybe a more advanced spot than we want to give credit for. Listen, and this is not me. This is me being a Blue Jays fan. This is not being analytical Jim looking at the league, 30,000 feet down. This is me like there's been too much talk of the Red Sox are going to suck this year and that they're going to lose, be in last place. Dude, Masataka Yoshida, watching him in the WBC looks scary.
Yeah.
And you add in, listen, if Alex Verdugo has a bounce back season, they got Devers locked in. They've got Kike Hernandez can be streaky, which they can be streaky good.
Yeah.
What's it? Say it again.
Zach Kelly made as a rookie, and so did Cassis. So they had another year season.
Cassis, right? There's just enough things there that I feel could go right for Boston. I'm not saying Boston's going to win 95 games, but I could see Boston finishing ahead of the Orioles and being a pain to deal with. Expecting them to come in, oh, here comes Boston. Boston's going to be easy this year. And then they're just not.
I have a hard time. By the way, if you don't mind, gang, smash those like buttons. If you don't mind, we're going to get those likes up as always. It's greatly appreciated. I have a hard time seeing Boston finishing last 2 years in a row. Not Boston, you know what I mean?
Right.
I could see it flip-flopping with Baltimore, and Baltimore still being good. So, I could see Tampa being a third-place team, and they're right now, I mean, they've got, I know Wander Franco just had an MRI done, but apparently got some decent news, so there's always worry about him getting hurt. So, but the development there and the young players that they keep pipelining up is just, it's a consistent thing over in Tampa Bay, and it's really hard for me to see them finishing any worse than third anytime soon.
Right.
What's your take?
Right. Yeah, my prediction is Blue Jays or Yankees. I mean, I think I'm still leaning Yankees. I did a predictions. I've done so many prediction videos now, I've lost track. But my consistent take is that the Yankees might win the East, but the Blue Jays might also go farther in the postseason.
I would agree.
So we'll see how that plays out. But it's Blue Jays, Yankees at the top. Then I have the Rays 3, the Red Sox 4, and the Orioles 5. And whether they're all over 500, that might be a stretch. But I could see Baltimore maybe finishing right around like 79 wins, 78 wins. Close. Boston hanging around 83, 84. And then Tampa's at 89, 90. something in that range, 91. And then you got Toronto and New York both banging on 100 wins.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Toronto's lineup right now is just more set up to feast on pitching in the playoffs. With
Yeah,
where they're
yeah,
out of the AL and like some of these other guys out of the AL, I think the Blue Jays can punish pitchers in the playoffs. I mean, they really could. So that's one reason they frighten the hell out of me. Blue Jays
you
lineup.
gotta. They gotta be healthy. They gotta hit because yeah, I mean when you're in the postseason at that from that point on, you're facing the best pitching that's out there. You're not able to feast and get cheapies against weak pitching from 100 lost teams and 90 lost teams. You're facing the best at that point.
Yep.
So your bats better be the best, and that's where cutting down on that swing and miss is going to be huge. That's why Donaldson does not. It's funny. That's why Donaldson just does not have a place on the team. Like for now, fine, it's cute, but no, I mean you got to get all that. You got to get as much of that swing and miss out of there.
Yeah. God, yeah. I mean, I know he just made a couple of mechanical adjustments to his swing. He's more upright.
Got in
Blah
his
blah. A
stance.
great week, but I mean, is a great week sustainable? I don't think so. Honestly, like how much can we expect out of Donaldson? That's
20. I think. Well, like right. I think your ceiling is 20 home runs. I
maybe.
think if he gets to 25, we'll be calling it a renaissance season. If he gets to
Yeah,
25, and that would be along with like a 240 batting average.
yeah, and exactly. I mean, and even next year, like so, he has a $16 million option or a $6 million buyout. So again, I mean, I can't see the Yankees exercising it.
No, he'll be
If he
gone.
plays well enough, if they trade him, that team exercise it, it could be a difference of $10 million for him in
Right.
terms of salary 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm him, I'm going to be motivated to play well this year, whether I stay with the Yankees or not.
Yeah.
So because I want that extra $10 million picked
Mm-hmm.
up, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that we get some kind of resurgence from. I expect good defense, but the offense is what scares the hell out of me. So and it's too unpredictable. Mr.
Yeah.
Coconuts, thank you for joining the membership. Appreciate that. But again, it's nuts. So there's too many to me. There's too many these types of red flags here with the Yankees. So I worry
Mm-hmm.
about it, which is why I need a guy like Oswald Peraza. I mean, I want Peraza and Volpe and Cabrera, that young jolt of energy for the team. Reminds me of Vlad, Bo, and a couple of those guys from Toronto. That
Mm-hmm.
young jolt of energy with high skill, high baseball IQ, hunger, aggressive players. The Yankees need that.
Right.
Excuse me, they need it, and it shows with the Blue Jays that they have these guys. They're a fearsome group, but they just play so well together. And again, it scares the hell out of pitchers. We need guys like that on the Yankees team to scare the hell out of pitchers. It can't only be Judge, Stanton on occasion, Rizzo when he's healthy, his back's not barking. Like people are now. I mean, they're recognizing Volpe's skill set.
Yeah.
Right? They're recognizing this. Even this kid Andres Chaparro is tearing the cover off the ball. So I'm hoping that he gets a shot this year too. And he's got a two-way kind of route here. He can replace Rizzo if his back's barking. He can replace Donaldson if he's not playing well. So
Mm-hmm.
he's got a little bit more of a clear path. So those are the young guys that I'm hoping that can bring a jolt of skill and energy to the Yankees. Because again, when these guys are not in the lineup, it's a completely different feel. Like I can tell when Volpe's not there, Peraza's not there. It's a different feel in the spring. I want to have the same type of feel during the regular season too. So I'm glad Volpe's here. So, but we'll see.
That's gonna Volpe's gonna be exciting. That's great that he got the call, and he could from day one be there and grow with the team. I like that. Yeah, he's ready, so give him the reps right now. Don't wait until because Peraza will be up. Like you said, we know Peraza is going to be up soon. That's not going to be a long time. I don't want you to be in a spot where because I wouldn't want to be in a spot where my top prospects like that are getting those reps when there's a ton of pressure. Like if they can handle it, great. But I would rather set them up to succeed, get them those early reps when the pressure is not as great. And I'm talking, September baseball uh, pennant rush, a pennant race. I don't. Like the Mets did it last year. with Vientos and Alvarez. Alvarez, if I remember, was up in a clutch spot at one point,
Yeah.
and he had 10 at bats to his name in the majors. So give those guys the at bats as early as you can. You can start them with the big league club, all the better, because get those get those growing pains, get those early at bats, get those looks out of the way soon. And two, I mean, you send Volpe out there now. He's gonna get to start to see guys. He'll see them. He might, and he'll see guys. Um, come that playoff, that pennant race, where let's say it is between Toronto and New York. I can't remember how much they play late in the season, but if there's a big series, Toronto and New York, and it's the last time they're facing each other, and Volpe already has 8 at bats against Alek Manoah because they played him earlier this year, that's all the better for Anthony Volpe versus this is the first time I'm seeing Alek Manoah. So get him in early, get him those reps early rather than later.
Yeah, and I'd rather them facing adversity April and May instead of September and October. Like facing guys like Manoah, big, strong, power pitchers, ace guys. Like I don't want them to see him the first time in September and October.
Right.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's to give the young guys an early shot, let them develop, let them get used to the league, the team, the environment. Because again, you're playing in Toronto, you're playing in Yankee Stadium. These are loud, exciting places. It's different than playing in Colorado or Cincinnati or whatever. Not taking anything away from these teams, but Toronto's a different beast. Bronx is a different beast. These are loud ass places.
Yeah.
So, and the fan energy is crazy. So, again, it can affect you, on the winning side and the losing side, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different environment, and you want these young kids to get used to that.
Yeah.
But again, it's not like playing in Tampa for spring training. There's about 800 people there. You're talking about 50,000 people, crazy people. So it's a different world.
Yeah. No, get him used to that early. Get him in. Because I know. It's gonna get tense in New York quick, right? Like let's not pretend that we don't know about that. Like it's gonna get intense in New York quick. It's gonna be intense in New York before it gets intense anywhere else. Like it's fun, baseball's back, it's all good, but then it's winning time.
Yep.
So you got to be ready to go, and just that winning time weight gets heavier and heavier as the season goes on. So before it's so heavy that it's going to have a negative impact on the player, get them out there.
Absolutely, and it's that. I mean, this is and I say this a lot too. It's the stressful part. At the same time, it's the exciting part. At the same time, it's the interesting part. It's a learning process for young players. It's also sometimes a learning process for even veteran players too, who can take a different approach later on in their career, right, as a way of preserving their kind of like Donaldson's doing, right? Kind of like Hicks, they're trying to make changes to preserve their career one way or another, preserve their tenure on a team or whatnot. So again, it's a learning experience for these guys too. So, but I'm most excited about the young Blue Jays, most excited about the young Yankees because it's a young dude's game now. So. And there's a lot more than we saw, like in the World Baseball Classic. A lot of young, dynamic players, and it was awesome to see players from Japan and everywhere, Curacao. Like how many good players are all over the world. I think it's a great global growth for the game itself. So, something that excites me too. And I had a question for you too. If we have last little bit of time to take questions for some people, but I had a question for you. What do you think about the World Baseball Classic? Do you think it's played at the right time? I actually proposed something where it might be wise to consider maybe playing it towards the end of the season because it would be easier to keep guys in shape, maybe keep them healthy as opposed to getting them in shape and potentially risking health. And I brought up a couple examples like guys that are going into a contract year who could be cashing on a big contract, but a guy gets hurt, tears ACL, whatever it is. And like an Edwin Diaz, if this was Edwin Diaz's contract, it would have been disastrous for him. But thankfully he's locked in now and so on and so forth. So, and it doesn't take away from your national pride and whatever it is. It's just a way of kind of preserving the athletes, and it would still be as exciting. Guys would be in game ready, and again, you could even set it in such a way where teams can mandate. Well, any teams that have pitchers that were not in the playoffs are eligible for the World Baseball Classic. We don't want to push the people who are multiple rounds of the playoffs any more than we need to. So those guys got to rest. So the pitching pool has to be from teams that didn't make the playoffs. They'll get a little bit more of an extended rest. And again, even that pool will probably be an upgrade over the pitching that they had anyway in Team USA. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the only drawback to having it later is you could have guys trying to bail out of it, similar to how you would have guys trying to bail out of the Pro Bowl in the NFL. I'm hurt. I'm run down. We know by the end of the season, everybody's hurt. So to have that competition after the season ends to say, here's potentially 6 or 7 more games for you to play. And oh, by the way, you're playing over at the Tokyo Dome. So, have fun with that jet lag. And then you got to come back. So, I mean, listen, Lars Mootbar just did it, but I think that you could have, I think you would have different participation problems if you did it towards the end. At the end of the day, I think you'll have participation problems specifically from the U.S. side, no matter when you do it. So then it becomes a question of when is the best time to do it for the tournament itself. And I really liked doing it when they did it because remember also at the end of the year you're going up against NFL at that point. So you doing it in March, you're doing it before you're sort of jump starting the baseball season. Because I don't know about you, but when that WBC was over, I was ready for opening day to happen like the next day. Yeah. So I kind of built up more anticipation for opening day. That was great. But you're also going at it when NFL's over. NBA is kind of in this. All right, we're just waiting for the postseason, so it can capture. Think about it. The NHL playoffs hasn't started. The WBC captured the sports narrative for the last, not the whole time. I get that. I'm not trying to make this thing into, but for those last few games, all eyes were on the WBC because it was the biggest. It was the biggest thing going. So that's great. The U.S. I was talking with a couple other guys, and I think I pinpointed the reason why, from a pitching perspective, other countries had their guys and the U.S. didn't. And maybe it's just a timing thing, but if you're Japan, if you're Korea, you want that national spotlight. You're already in the major leagues. If you already made it, you're not necessarily looking for that. And the counter argument to that is, well, look at Venezuela. They had Pablo Lopez. Look at Dominican Republic. They had Sandy Alcantara. They had MLB players playing for their team. But I don't know, man. I'm a prideful USA guy. There is just something different about Venezuela, these other countries playing for their countries. They just maybe it's because like if you're Corbin Burns, you feel like you're playing for the USA every day because you're Milwaukee Brewer. You got Milwaukee across your chest. If you're Sandy Alcantara, you can only have the Dominican Republic on your chest at this tournament. And if you're so it was really just a pitching thing, right? The batters were fine. We had a stacked lineup. We had one of the best lineups in the tournament. So when it comes to the pitching, I think USA is always going to have a tough time because they don't really have guys that are looking for the limelight. And, if you're Corbin Burns or if you're one of the other young pitchers, you don't want to take a risk and mess up a major contract by overdoing it and having to maybe have Tommy John surgery and miss a year or have a problem like Edwin Diaz had. So I think the U.S., maybe from a pitching perspective, timing needs to be a little bit better where some of these guys need to already have their contracts locked in and the U.S. can get some better starters in there because I think that was really the only negative, the only takeaway that I had where I was like, well, it could have been better was the U.S. starting pitching. But I think timing, the pride issue, maybe not being as strong to pitch for your country when you're pitching for your country all the time. Maybe that's just part of it that is always going to be going against the United States' favor when they're trying to get some pitching.
Those are good points. I like to add something. It's a credit to Japan. They're a very fundamentally skilled country. Mm-hmm. So to me, I've never seen a really deviation from game readiness when I ever see Japan play. Yeah. So to me, it's a very, very, very skilled, great baseball nation. So I got to give them credit. I got to give them credit. I mean, we have
more to Japan there. I saw an article talking about how the splitter is like an art form in Japan. Mm-hmm. Look at how good those pitchers are. We need to start teaching the splitter more. I don't know what it is. I think that I mean my son likes to play baseball. He likes to pitch. He's thinking about pitching. I'm he's too little, but as he gets older, dude, you need a splitter. You need a split.
I mean, one of the nastiest splitters of all time was Roger Clemens, and he was dominant with the splitter.
Gotta
So,
have, I think you gotta have it.
yeah, I mean, and there's not. You're right too. Not as many pitchers utilize it maybe the way they should, and I would agree. It's a
I mean,
big,
there's a good amount that do, but I think everybody needs to have a nasty splitter.
yeah.
Everybody needs to have a nasty splitter that they could go to. Like DeGrom, Strider, we're seeing a ton of guys really nail it with fastball slider, and that's a great combination. But if you had an elite fastball, an elite slider, and a fall off the table splitter, you would be unhittable. If you had, I'm not saying you're gonna work on it. You're gonna have an Otani level splitter or any of those Japanese players, but I feel like what I think I saw from this is a trend where we need more. You need to have a splitter in your arsenal.
I agree. A lot of them using it as out pitches and figuring ways to use it to get hitters like Mike Trout to strike out.
Plus, I mean, you get Mike Trout starting out. You got Paul Goldschmidt in at bats just looking like he can't hit, and it's because of the splitter using the splitter and the fastball. I mean, if you had a fastball, a splitter, a changeup, and a slider, and you had command of all of those, you'd be unhittable.
Yep.
You would be literally unhittable. And I think that's the 21-year-old from Japan. His name is escaping me right now. I think that's his arsenal.
Oh, it's Roki Sasaki.
Right, Sasaki. I think that's his arsenal. And forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be once he's posted, whenever that is,
Ooh,
he's going to get no shortage
money.
of hitters.
Yep.
No shortage. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. But I mean, we got about 10 minutes left. If you're up for some questions for some folks,
Cool.
is that cool?
Yeah.
Gang, if you want to shoot some questions our way, we're happy to do it. By the way, thank you, Texas Buckeye and Joel for your super chats. We greatly appreciate it. Smash the like button. Let's get over 100 if you don't mind. But if anybody has any questions for Jim and I, let's get them in here. Oh, hey, we got one from D right here. How about this? How about the screwball? A lost art form. I don't remember the last person who was a Negro.
Devin Williams kind of feels a screwball from the Brewers.
He does?
Yeah. I mean, I think it probably, it classifies as a changeup, but it's kind of like a screwball. And he's the only one that really does it. It's the whole thing. If you're a righty and it's coming over, it change up and it goes. On the camera, it's probably going to look right, but it goes in the opposite direction that you think it's going to go. Typically, a changeup is going to go down, or it's going to kind of go with the arm motion, and it'll fall away from a right-handed batter. But the screwball, if you're a righty, it's going to be sort of like that changeup, but it's going to fall away from the left-handed batter. Or if you're a righty, it's going to kind of fall in. And Devin Williams throws that. I think he might be the only one that's throwing that right now.
That's a guy. He's pretty nasty, actually.
He is pretty nasty. I don't know why that went away. I don't know. Maybe there was pitcher coaches stopped teaching it. Maybe there were elbow issues. Maybe there's a higher likelihood of injury. But that is a pitch that seems to have gone away.
That's true. We got another question here. A question because how do we feel about the Kansas City Royals? Can they do better? Like, I mean, they have a lot of good looking prospects like Bobby Witt Jr. and stuff like that, and they have bigger oldest Chapman there, but I still think they're a few pieces away to. I mean, they're going to have to get through the Cleveland Guardians. I don't know about you, Jim, but that's going to be a hard one. Even the White Sox, but the Guardians are going to be pretty competitive, I think, for the next couple of years.
I like what Casey's got in a few spots. I like Brady Singer.
Mm-hmm.
I like Singer. I really like Bobby Witt. I like Vinny Pasquantino. I like MJ Melendez. There's Sal Perez. I think he's going to have a monster season. I think he'll have a 2021 level season. So there's some good stuff there, but it's not enough. It's just after Brady Singer, I don't trust enough of those arms to really carry them. And those bats are good, but it's half the lineup. Half the lineup is good. It's just not enough.
I would agree with that. I would agree. We got one for you here too, Jim. How do you see the Blue Jays doing this year? Where do you see them finishing? I see some huge offensive performances, but what do you, Jim? You want to elaborate?
It's Blue Jays and Yankees. They're going to bang away at each other all year. They could both win 100 games. It could be a 199. I think I've taken the over on both of their win totals, which would put them at that point. They're gonna beat up on each other all year long. So it's going to come down to who can stay healthier and who gets the right drops in the right moments. I think when we're talking about 1 or 2 games, which I think is how close it's going to be, that's what it's going to come down to. And in the end, I'm still going to say the Yankees can win the division. Or I'll say the Yankees. My prediction is that the Yankees will win the division, but the Blue Jays can win the division. And just because the Yankees are my pick to win the division doesn't mean the Yankees are my pick to go to the World Series, or that I would have the Yankees with that far of an edge over the Blue Jays to represent against Houston in the ALCS. Let's not even talk about the World Series yet. Let's talk about getting past Houston first.
Yeah. And again, I mean, what was it last year? What was the division decided by 7 games? I think it's going to be no more than 2 or 3 this year.
It's going to be tight.
That could be the difference between them passing a different wild card team or whatever it is. It could alter the standings. The closer you are to the first place team, it could change your trajectory, the calculus in the playoffs. So You're right. The Blue Jays can make a run. Like any team can make a run. It doesn't matter who wins the division. I mean, the Mets ran away with it last year. They got pounded by the Padres in the playoffs. So it's just the way that it works. I mean, Joe Musgrove turned into, Tom Seaver for the playoffs. So it's just, I never seen him like that, but he just did. So it's
he can get hot. He can get hot.
And he was red hot. So good for him. I mean, they gave him a huge extension, and good for him. So we see Dominguez going to call. Depends on, honestly, I see him starting in Double-A. Okay, where he got a handful of games last year, and then if he plays well enough, he'll get a jump up to Triple-A like Volpe did. I don't want to throw him to the wolves just yet. I mean, I don't. Sometimes I disagree with the Mike Trout and the Mickey Mantle comparisons. I think it's unfair to Dominguez. Did he have a killer spring? Yes, but that doesn't mean he's ready for the major leagues because he's hitting these home runs off of guys that are fringe players. He's not hitting them off Verlander, Manoah. So fringe players who are also trying to get promoted. So the perspective has to remain there, I think. What do you think about that, Jim?
I'm with you. I think it is unlikely. I wouldn't rule it out, but I think it is unlikely that he gets called up this year.
I would agree. I mean, he showed that he's the real deal, no doubt about it. But he's the real deal Double-A right now. Like a Volpe a year behind Volpe kind of thing. So I still think he needs some development, as do Volpe's going to continue to develop, and as all these guys. So and the top prospects and all the team, they just need to develop. So and the Yankees have a lot of firepower in Double-A, but there's a jump from Double-A to Triple-A, then another jump from Triple-A to the majors. It's a huge skill set. And if you have to face Manoah and Verlander and DeGrom in consecutive days, that's a nightmare for hitters. A nightmare. And it's different than facing these guys in the spring. So, mid-season Manoah is a different beast than spring training Manoah.
Right, exactly.
And he is very hard to hit. So, as are a lot of these other players. So it's not to take anything away from Dominguez or some of these other guys, but I think they saw what they wanted to see developmentally, and now they stashed them away, and they're going to continue to let them develop. So I don't think it's wise to just throw him in the majors. As much as people wanted to throw him in there right now, I don't think he's better than, whoever it might be. Let's just say Brian Reynolds. He's not better than Brian Reynolds right now. He's not. Maybe he has a higher ceiling later, but he's not better than Brian Reynolds right now. So and that's a painful reality that I think it's important to acknowledge.
Right.
I like him, but it's just I don't want to put him in an untenable situation. So, and it's highly touted prospects. Everyone want to make sure they develop and continue to develop and be in a position where they can continue to get better. So I think it's exciting to see. Hopefully he gets to AAA. If he makes it somehow to the major leagues, then great. But he's going to have to go on some kind of Juan Soto trajectory to do that. In other ways, that's kind of the way it is in the majors, right? You got your Sotos, you have your Tatises, but you can count them on one hand. How many Double-A players can you see getting up to the major leagues at fourth? Not many. So, I get the prospect value and the hype and all that stuff, but I think it's important to keep that perspective. So, Jim, if you were playing for the Blue Jays, what would your walk-up song be, Jim? You're
I
walking
don't know, man.
up.
It would probably be some kind of something something some kind of rock song. I don't know. Maybe something from AC/DC, something from Metallica.
Oh,
It would really have to be a pump up song. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd go any other way. It would be something along those lines.
I like it. I like that. I like that. This is somebody just brought something up with Spencer Jones being closer to the majors than Brian Reynolds. Not Brian Reynolds, than Jason Dominguez. Spencer Jones spent 3 years at Vanderbilt. So they're one of the most storied collegiate franchises. So developmentally, I see him closer to the majors than Jason Dominguez. Dominguez might have higher upside, but yeah, I do see somebody who spent 3 years at Vanderbilt to be closer. He's also older and more physically developed and whatnot. So I could see that, but that doesn't mean he's going to make it to the majors before Dominguez. It's just
No. Dominguez was an international draft signing, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, now that doesn't mean that he's a 16 or 17-year-old, but it means he's younger and he doesn't have the seasoning that you would have from somebody who has multiple years of college experience like that.
Yep, and it's a different ballgame. Playing at Vanderbilt, it's not like you're playing at Appalachian State. You're playing at Vanderbilt. You're going up against Arkansas and UCLA on a regular basis. And these guys, that's where the Garrett Coles come from, and all these other players. That's where David Price came from, Vanderbilt. Brian Reynolds, Vanderbilt. Right. So Dansby Swanson, Vanderbilt. It's just it's like a feeding frenzy for major league players. So that's where you go. That's where you go. So, and lastly, we'll take one final question before we wrap it up here. Your prediction, Brian, Atlanta wins the NL East, huh? What's your take on the NL East really quickly, Jim?
That's a tough one between the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies. They're going to battle it out all year. The Phillies took a hit with Hoskins going down. So, I think I had the Phillies slightly on the outside of the East pennant to begin with. And I think that only gets further confirmed. So it's really between those two teams. And I can't, it's hard to really pick it because they were, one game difference last year.
Yeah.
And I think I could see that running back. I would say today, maybe give me, I think Acuna's going to win the MVP and just have an unbelievable year. And the Braves didn't have that type of Ronald Acuna last year. Both teams. Brian, you've got Atlanta winning the NL East? Dude, I don't know, man. I go back and forth. Braves fans got really mad at me this offseason, so I'll say Mets. I'll go Mets win the NL East because all the pissed off Braves fans from the offseason. I'll go Mets.
It's going to be a bloodbath in the NL East too. I mean,
they're going to beat. I mean, right. We think it's going to be tough in the AL East. I mean, imagine if the Rays we knew were better than last year, right? Once Bryce Harper gets back and you have, Grand Slam, Captain America, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, they're locked in playing that competitive baseball. Nola is going to be motivated, pitching with a chip on his shoulder because he didn't get an extension. So imagine the Rays up a couple levels. That's what Philly is. And then you already have the Blue Jays and Yankees. That's what's happening in the NL East right now. God save the Marlins and the Nats from that mess because they have no chance.
Yeah, and wait till the Phillies get Bryce Harper back.
Right, exactly. And they didn't put him on the 60-day IL. At least that's the last I saw, which makes some wonder if he'll be back sooner than, mid-season.
Yeah, and this guy, I mean, you're talking about a modern-day Pete Rose. He's a gamer of gamers. So
he can get out there and DH.
Yep.
That's what they'll do.
Yeah, and you talk about, I mean, and again, they have the personnel. The Mets have the personnel. The Braves do too, but it's not as, I guess, name recognition-y as the other teams, right? The Braves are just good all around.
Yeah.
They make savvy trades. Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, they're set for the next decade. So
they really are. Yeah, they're amazing. Like I said, Acuna is my NL MVP pick. and I think more people are coming onto that. I was on that a couple weeks ago, and I was getting a lot of doubt for that. But seeing him in WBC, seeing him these last couple weeks during spring training, dude's back. Like last year's Acuna, he was not back. He was not healthy. You
Yeah.
can see him in the field. He was moving gingerly. He is out there with reckless abandon now. And so give me 40 homers. That's easy. Give me the 40 homers, and with the limited pitch pickoff attempts, with the bigger bases, I'm serious. I think he's got a 40-40 season in him. He came close a couple of years ago, and that was with the old rules. I, Acuna is just going to.
You have two in history before you leave. Two 40-40 guys in history, A-Rod and Soriano. Is that it?
I think there were more, but it's escaping.
I know A-Rod was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I think there might be two or three, and that's it.
Right.
So,
I can't. Yeah, I can't think of them, and I have no technology to look that up right now because my phone's over there charging because it was almost dead, and my laptop is dead. So
yeah.
F-
For those who
FML.
don't know, Jim's laptop died shortly before we started recording, so he was still kind enough to spend some time with us. He made it work, so we thank him. And hopefully next month we do this again. You'll have everything up and running. It'll be a lot of fun. But dude, I want to thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. It was a lot of good intel, a lot of good conversation. It's good for the folks who, I thank you all for coming on and joining us. It's folks like you that make our channels better, motivate us to do what we do, right? And so we thank you. And again, Jim, thanks so much for coming on, and keep up the good work, my friend. And if anybody, before you guys and gals leave, if you don't mind, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to BALLCAP Sports, I'm a proud member of BALLCAP Nation. Please head over and do that as well. So it's a great channel, and again, you'll enjoy it. So if you enjoy 161, you're going to love BALLCAP Sports too. So appreciate all of yous. Have a great Sunday night, and you're going to get news from us one way or the other whenever it comes out. So have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time. So let's hang on a second. I'll get nice. Keep you on.